So I'm smoking an old CustomBilt. Not that old. This is kind of a middle era CustomBilt. Nice. Wide shallow bowl though, like a BP Jum. So it kind of wants a codger blend in it to smoke well. So I'm smoking is some Players Navy Cut, Navy Flake. Notice smoking kills. Also, smokers die younger. So, be forewarned. This came from a trip to Nottingham, England. Gosh, it's probably been, it was way pre-COVID, you know. So, maybe 2015, I forget when it was. Really a fun trip. But that was about all that was available at the little tobacconist in Nottingham that I went to. So it's kind of a codger blend. Damn Bic. These ones with the are a good idea, but I find them to be lacking. Not the usual Bic reliability. So this is okay. I'm sure it's mostly burley. Although you never know. Maybe there's Virginia in there. But it's just, and it's a little old now, but it was a nice flake, actually. So that was something. Check to make sure the camera's still running. Oh, yes, it is. So this is filmed using the Sigma FP, which is actually a real pain in the ass because it has horrific autofocus and no flippy screen. So I'm using not a Ninja, but a Shinobi. Who is it? I forget who the manufacturer. A little screen, you know, plugs into the HDMI port. And 8-bit MOV. So I don't know if it really makes any difference for YouTube. I kind of don't think so. Using a Sigma 35mm art lens. So I find the technology interesting. And in fact, camera stuff's just always been interesting to me. Ever since I was, even in elementary school, I loved going to the library and looking at old Look and Life magazines and seeing the black and white photography and later the color photography. I could just spend hours looking at the images. So I'm just totally an amateur, but it's fun. It's a hobby. So yeah, I just like doing that. I'm in the smoking shed, the garden shed, on a nice warm day. So it's kind of like being in a greenhouse. Might be a little warm. But, I've gone through some camera gear just as a hobby. And so currently I'm using the Sigma FP platform, which is full frame Bayer sensor, but with the usual Sigma quirkiness, which makes it very interesting and fun to use and satisfying. So, yeah, it's just fun using it. I don't get that great of results, just because I'm kind of a doofus artistically, but it's fun. So sensors, I've been watching some video. I have some Pentax 645 lenses. It's their medium format because they're very inexpensive, and the A series are these really nicely made lenses from the film era, when Pentax had a 645 medium format camera. It was the 645N, I think was the last one that they made. And they were cheap on eBay. Less, like you can pick up a really good one for $500. But film, I'm just not. I love the convenience of digital, and I actually like the technology with digital. So, yeah, I'm really not interested in going back to film. But the film era lenses with adapters, and they're all manual. They were all manual to begin with, so it's not like you're losing any functionality. Are just, they give a different result. You know, they're not quite as pin sharp as these modern Sigma art lenses, for instance, or Sony G Masters, or Zeiss, anything. But they're very economical, and it's a hobby, you know. So it's just playing around with this stuff is fun for me. So I did pick up a used Pentax 645Z, which is quite a fine camera, huge, single lens reflex, so it's like clunk as the mirror goes down, or up rather, and then down, to expose the film plane. And I'm not a big through the viewfinder kind of guy, I've discovered. I kind of like, although I'm adaptable, I kind of like the mirrorless experience, honestly. But not necessarily with a viewfinder. The FP now offers a viewfinder, but I use the kind of a hood with a magnifier that plugs onto the back of the camera, that functions as a really big immersive viewfinder, but you're really looking at the back screen. So in bright conditions, it's perfect. But I find it pretty fun. Otherwise, it is immersive. Yeah. So it really like draws you into the process. Again, it's a hobby, right? So lately, and this is not a new thing, I've thought about this for a long time, the 645Z has a CMOS sensor, like all modern cameras do. But the technology that kind of preceded that digitally for sensors was called CCD, and it kind of captures the whole image at once, rather than line by line by line by line, which is where you get rolling shutter, which is kind of that jello-y effect in video, and where in stills, if something's moving really fast, some of the vertical lines will be tilted forward. So that's because it's reading line by line. Anyway, this is all kind of technical stuff, but CCD sensors seem to have a different way of capturing color, and I would love to try that. Now, Pentax, before the 645Z and after the 645N film camera, they had a 645D, which used a 40 megapixel Kodak CCD sensor, before Kodak completely lost their way and went bankrupt. Too bad. Great. An American institution. That's another story. There are videos on YouTube about that, how they lost their way. But, like Boeing, it's bad management. So, long story short, I would love to try a CCD sensor. So if I find a good one that's cheap enough, I might do that. I think I'm going to sell the 645Z to a friend of mine, and maybe use that money to buy the 645D, the CCD sensor. And I don't know if it even does video. It may not. I mean, I don't care. It's more still images that I'm interested in. And I really love this little Sigma FP. It's not a Foveon sensor. It's not the Sigma Foveon sensor. They're still working on that years later. But all these sensors do different things well and do different things poorly. Now, CMOS arguably has the best balance. You know, great dynamic range, ISO, meaning film speed basically. You can set it on auto and just let it go and do whatever it needs to do and focus on the aperture and the shutter speed to make sure that you're getting the shot you want. Because grain and noise in the shadows is so much better controlled now. With every camera evolution, every sensor evolution, it gets better. So the FP, I love that about it. It's small, it's fun to use, it's great. But I would love to try the CCD sensor. And so I turned 65 in April. And so I use that as an excuse, not that I haven't before, to say, you know, life's for living. Do things while you can. And have fun while you can, you know, because I know for me physically, my deterioration started with my back when I was 57. And it's just been kind of a clown show train wreck ever since, in a way. I mean, I'm fine, but you have to take advantage of medical improvements to make your life better, you know. So I find I just can't do as much as I used to do, and that's very frustrating sometimes. But so they're mowing with a big tractor and the articulated arm, and you know, I had gone up there last weekend with the little DR brush mower to kind of trim it down, because it's been such a wet spring that we have had lots and lots of growth. So you have to keep up with stuff, you know, like your body. You have to, if you need a little back surgery to make your life continue to work pretty well, or have a hip replaced, that's what you have to do. You know, I think take advantage of it. Don't be afraid of it. The Dodge is out in the driveway, still disabled, because it won't start. For a while there it would start, but then it would die after a few seconds. So it's either a fuel pump, I've replaced the filter, it could be the stop solenoid, the fuel stop solenoid, so I'm going to try that. Yeah, so I haven't had the mower out at Big Valley, so I have neglected my caretaking of that. And there's going to be some pretty high grass out there. When I was gone over to Spokane for that conference, I was gone for a week, and the yard, I had to mow it with the string trimmer first and then get in there with the push mower. So you just have to kind of take care of your stuff. And if you like older stuff, like I do, generally, I mean the FP is a current series camera, but like the 645D that I'm thinking of, I think it came out in like 2012 or something. You know, I mean, it's, in camera years, that's like generations ago. So, so you have to take care of your stuff. My work truck, the tailgate, one of the little springs in one of the side clips where the little latch is, had broken, and so I just made do by manually pushing the latch back and then closing the gate, and it would fall into place and lock it into place, and it would open normally, but it wouldn't stay in the up position. It would, fall back down, and so when you close the tailgate, boom, and so some gorilla borrowing the truck, different people drive that truck, said, this thing's not closing, and so he just slammed it, and boom, it was locked into place. So I thought, okay, finally, I have to take the time. This was like, I kid you not, 3 years ago. So a pickup truck, you can keep reaching in, but it was time to do something. So I brought it home and took the tailgate apart, and it works. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so that was a success. I'll get the Dodge running, that will be a success. Or ultimately, I guess I could have it towed to a garage. That's a pain. And they're weeks out, you know, they're so busy. So my oven in the house just died. So, you know, you have to replace this stuff. While I'm at it, let's replace the fridge, because that's its own story. So, I mean, you just have to keep at things, right? And I think sometimes we don't do that enough, maintain our stuff enough, especially if you like old stuff. You really have to keep at it. So, some people just buy a new car every 4 or 5 years. They're good to go. Okay. But I like the older stuff. And the value kind of is in the older stuff, but you have to spend a little money maintaining it. Same is true for your body, you know. So this was a thoroughly unremarkable smoke. I mean, it is a smoke, but not much there. It could just be that it's older too, but I suspect there was never much there. Now that's one thing, since at first, kind of just as things were locking down for COVID, I lost my sense of taste and smell for a week. I mean, it was like, what's going on? And then it turned out that was one of the COVID symptoms. But that was the only symptom I seemed to have. If it was that at all, maybe it was something else. So, I have never fully regained that. Whether that's COVID or not, you know, testing was impossible in the early days, unless you were in the hospital. So, I don't know. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. But I never have quite regained my sense of taste. And I have heard as you get older, you kind of lose that anyway. So this may be very flavorful, and I'm just not tasting it at all. Who knows? These wide, broad bowls that are shallow, I think smoke better with a dry, good burning tobacco like a Codger blend, which is mostly burley, which burns well. Generally, unless it's so glopped up with humectant like Captain Black that I was feeling some bags in there that are at least 10 years old, and they're just squishy still. Yuck. So this was pretty dry, but not dust. So there's some humectant in there too. But it's okay. Yeah, so you got to maintain your stuff. That's just an old guy rule, I guess. But it gets harder to do that too, because you're just not as able to like crawl under vehicles and reach up into the recesses and change a fuel pump or whatever, you know. So, and then to have somebody else do it costs money, takes time, can be weeks, and so you tend not to do it. Right? So, but honestly, it's satisfying when you get stuff done. So happy summer, everybody. It's Summer is upon us. I know in Canada they're like burning up, wildfires. Oh my gosh. So we had one the other night at 3 a.m., of course, that I responded to. It was small, 10 by 10, but it had gotten up into the trees. Oh, so that was pretty scary. And at night, you could really see it. So, so it's a taste of things to come. Saturday, tomorrow, I'm gonna take that water truck down to the county fairgrounds, and there's a touch-a-truck event. It's Kids Day, so I am the designated one. So I'll get my kid fix on Saturday. It's always a good time. Okay. Stand the polishing. It's a little green. But with these bits, this is clear vinyl tubing. You don't really taste the vulcanite, the rubber. It's like licking a tire on a hot day. So, and it's just the right grip, just the right bite. I'm a believer in those things. I think this was probably 5/8. It's so cheap, it's like 60 cents a foot at your local hardware store. Food grade vinyl tubing for ice makers and such. So I was buying a refrigerator. There's so much sizzle on that steak, you know what I mean? It's like, just show me the most basic model, please. And, well, they're in the back, they're selling all the features, the ice maker, the crushed ice, the chiller, every freezer should be on the bottom, if you ask me. I don't know why a freezer is on the top. So you have to reach down into the fridge compartment, which you're going to use a lot. That's stupid. But to get the bottom freezer, you'll pay another $400, $500. Wow. What a racket, So I went with the super basic model and screw the bottom freezer. Yeah, I'll live without it. But in that stainless steel, that cheap thin stainless steel they use on commercial, on home models versus commercial, gets a little dent in it. It shows fingerprints. It's just a pain. So I got the white finish. Interestingly, it's the longest warranty one, and the one they said they'd had the fewest problems with, is from Turkey. It's called Beko, and I've heard it's the second best-selling brand in Europe. I don't know. A refrigerator from Turkey. Really? Can't we just make this stuff domestically? But, it's got some thoughtful features that the cheapo GE, Frigidaire, all those did not have. And the warranty was quite a bit better. So, we'll see. We'll see how it works. It'll be here in a week. So my refrigerator was, and when I moved into this little cabin, being taken over by the woods 35 years ago, was a 1938 GE coil on top refrigerator. And it worked great for 30 years. And then just before COVID, it stopped working. And it's like nobody will fix those. They're filled with, the refrigerant is some kind of ethyl methyl death, some horrible stuff that'll kill you if it escapes. So nobody works on them. The compressor is integrated with the coolant in the coils, so you can't just replace the compressor. So it was. Oh, somebody's having a problem.
884 PLS green response 6537
So then I bought like a bigger dorm refrigerator at Costco for $130 or whatever. Was it Costco? Maybe it was Home Depot. I don't remember. Anyway, it's been okay, but it's pretty small. So, like, oh, watermelons are on sale. Well, I don't really have room in the fridge for watermelon. And cool watermelon is just the thing. So, time for a new fridge. Yeah, that's how it happens. All good, it's all good. Life is pretty wonderful.